What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Canes Insight Daily Podcast, powered by Andishar and Levine Accident Attorneys. It is Wednesday. You know what that means. We got Mike Ryan here. We got Peter behind the boards. It's a huge week. It is FSU week. They suck, but it's still FSU week. A lot to talk about, a lot to get into. Huge game last week as well. A lot of relief from Canes fans. We'll break it down. Chat's already bumping. Appreciate everybody. You want to get Pete in here?
Pete, hop in.
We're here, baby. We're here.
Look at those beautiful peepers.
You got the clam hat on.
It's good. Were people nervous and relieved last week? I didn't really, honestly, compared to Virginia Tech and Cal, that was a cakewalk in terms of my nerves. I didn't feel like, maybe you guys feel differently. You guys weren't at the festivities. We miss you out in Louisville. We had a great time. Great city. Great event, by the way. I want to give the flowers to the athletic department. A little hit or miss over the years with some of these events. They knocked this Golden Canes trip out of the park. Shout out Caleb Blake. This felt like a premium experience. It was wonderful. We enjoyed our time in Louisville. Great city, hospitable people. Proclivity to leave sporting events early, I found, when it doesn't really make sense. I mean, you have a team that scored 14 points in a minute. You would think that, 3 minutes and down 14 would be all right, but apparently a bridge too far for that program. But in terms of the game, D-Money, I was never really ever that nervous during this game. There was that moment that I referenced where they scored 14 points, ended up tying the game. But there was at no point in that game that I think Miami was in complete control of that game. They just flatly couldn't stop Miami's offense. Now, still some frustrations with the defense. I get that. But I do think that you can frame that defensive performance as a low-key positive. This is a talented offensive side for Louisville, and I apologize for the hijacking. I'm just getting all my Louisville thoughts out there. But you essentially had what was a fumble 6. You had the kickoff return. That's 14 points right there. The 7 that they score at the end, okay, we've seen tons of teams score in that situation. When you're up 14, maybe you take your foot off the gas a little bit. I'd say while the score doesn't reflect it, it was more of like a 28-point performance, really, in actuality. And if I tell you that before the game, you take it with your offense. So far, until we see it, an opposing team has to prove that they can keep this Miami offense under 35, 40 points. And Miami's offense is just brilliant. To think that the running game got going and Cam Ward, if anything, advances his case for the Heisman Trophy. It wasn't a perfect game by any stretch of the imagination for Cam Ward there. And if you're an NFL talent evaluator, Pete, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, because if I want to have a devil's advocate conversation about Cam Ward, if my job is on the line as an NFL talent evaluator and I'm looking at, say I hold the number 5 pick in the NFL draft, I put on that Louisville tape as a discussion piece to let my front office fight it out, because while Cam did some amazing things, that throw in the back of the end zone as he buys time, kind of like a redux of what he did in Gainesville, you essentially see that and say only Cam Ward can do that in the nation. And then you see 2 9-yard slants that would have been house calls that he completely sailed. So I'm curious what your takeaway was from that Cam Ward performance.
I mean, look, from the perspective of a Canes fan, it's very tough to nitpick that game, and it's been tough to nitpick with the offense all season long. Unfortunately, that's not how the NFL scouts look at things. And yes, there were some missed opportunities there. The Fletcher, the play where he was moving around like Brett Favre and had the underhand toss was an interesting one as well. I think people would also look at the fumble 6 that was also reversed, right? And that's something that I think D would also agree with in terms of his hand size. That's something that's going to be discussed. The fumble issues over his career have not necessarily been that this season. I think a lot of that credit goes to Miami's offensive line for keeping him relatively clean there. But yes, a lot of the issues, and I said this last week, that came to play in his tape at Washington State, they are still there to a certain extent, and a lot of things are masked by the talent around him compared to what he's had. But again, if we're looking at this from the Canes fans' perspective, it's very tough to nitpick, because he did bounce back in those situations and end up, coming up with scoring drives there. So yes, there's definitely going to continue to be a discussion from the NFL perspective. And look, if he if he goes out there and is on this trajectory, it's also going to be tough to keep him out of the top 5 to 10. So it goes both ways here. But I'm very surprised, Mike, that you buried the lead here in terms of the big news that just dropped. And this is
you're right.
Something that we talk about every week here.
Foolish of me, because I actually think most people in our comment section would rather hear uniform talk this week, because it's a highly combustible situation that we got over here. But to close the book on the Cam Ward discussion, Cam Ward, he is going to be a fascinating person when it comes to draft evaluation, because you can see a GM think this guy's going to get me fired, but you can see a team totally falling in love with his competitive spirit, his refusal to quit. So we can have the Cam Ward discussion at any point this season. We can't often talk about all black uniforms. And you know me, I'd become the uniform guy. Now, we caught wind of this earlier, and I'm glad that they announced it, because we would have scooped this announcement. Yeah, I'm not going to let Gio get all the shine here. Come on. I'm not going to let the nameless. We've known about this, and we've respected the protocol here. But all black uniforms. D-Money, you are a traditionalist when it comes to the uniforms. I think these are a clean look. In a vacuum, these are cool-looking uniforms that recruits will love to dress up in. But black uniforms or alternate uniforms have a checkered past when it comes to the University of Miami. And when it comes to this specific rivalry, you may lean more of a traditional look here in this game. So your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the classic aesthetic, which I didn't use that word ever until like a year and a half ago. And now I use it all the time. I hear it all the time. But I do like the classic look, FSU. I think what's happening here is they're trying to break the curse. I agree. The black looks cool to me. I agree. And it's associated with losses. So the thinking is you want to break the curse against a light touch. You can't risk it against a Syracuse. You can't risk it against a Georgia Tech. You can't risk it against the Duke program that we saw what they did last week. So who is the lightest touch remaining on the schedule? That would be the Florida State Seminoles. So if any team is going to break the curse of the black jerseys, this is the week to do
So
it.
You're taking the opportunity to take a shot at FSU. I get it. So I actually can do a little reporting here on the black uniforms, as you know how much I care about it. First off, from an aesthetics kit clash perspective, you cannot go wrong with all black against whatever uni set FSU decides to trot out there, unless they decide to go black shells and black pants for some reason. But we're good on what this looks like. It was a little confusing because if you remember the promotional calendar, orange out. People thought, well, does Miami wear all orange? They trotted that look out. And if you notice, all orange, that was some Manny Diaz type uniform combination. When Mario's been here, it's been very much white tops, orange pants on the road, at home, orange tops, white pants at home. Very like we canceled Miami Nights one year. It was supposed to, then you saw every usher with just all this leftover inventory wearing the truckers. You watching somehow got one of those Miami Nights truckers for free. But this year, Miami's approached the uniform game differently. Why is that? Well, there's a reason for that. Mario Cristobal used to make the decisions. He has given over the decisions on what the team wears on game days to his leadership council. Now, it is pretty clear who the bona fide leader of this team is. So let's just say the person that just announced an NIL deal with Adidas has a lot of sway over what uniforms they wear over there. And it may or may not have been a debate for a couple of days, maybe even longer, because Mario, especially when it comes to this rivalry, is a traditionalist. But look, across the board, I think you can make a real case. People won't ever let him have it, but I think you can make a case that Mario Cristobal is a coach of the year this year.
No question.
And we all know who he is from a talent acquisition standpoint, but think about your concerns. He can't recruit a quarterback. Been there, done that. Navigating this whole new world of college athletics as well as any coach, as other coaches dip, not just in football, but in women's college basketball, men's college basketball. Some people don't have the guts for this fight. Mario Cristobal was built for this. The criticisms that you have of Mario Cristobal, game day management. The guy's going to botch the timeouts. He's going to botch the challenges. We don't trust him. A+ is across the board.
Three close games. You miss one move there, you're done.
He has absolutely rectified that. And how about this? What type of offense would Mario Cristobal prefer to run if you know his identity?
I have a bone to pick with what you're saying. I know where you're going. Go, let you finish. I disagree.
This is a compliment to Mario Cristobal.
Yeah.
That I'm about to. But historically, he builds in the trenches. So, control the time of possession, which Miami actually has been very good at. despite doing it in unconventional ways, non-traditional ways. You build across the line, you salt the game away on the ground, run first. That's what everybody said was Mario Cristobal. Well, Mario Cristobal has proven to you that he's willing to adapt and get the most out of his talented players and put his best players in position to succeed. That is a signature, a hallmark of a good coach. What I'm saying is, to this point in the season, every single one of your very valid concerns when you hold up against Mario Cristobal's resume, I'm not saying he's a good game day coach. I'm not saying that the cliche about him not being able to recruit quarterbacks is unfounded completely. I get where people are coming from. But what I'm saying is this year, he's got an answer for every single one of your questions about him. He has done particularly well, and he's shown that he can evolve as the times evolve. And one of those ways he's evolving is empowering his players who would like that stuff more than Mario. Mario Cristobal doesn't give a flying F about that stuff, or at least he likes to give that off. So he's empowered his players. The players have really rallied around their leader. This is a nice little reward. And also, they're not cursed. They wore the black uniforms against Virginia Tech a couple of years ago. That was a big game, and they performed very well in those things. The program's been cursed. It ain't the uniforms. And the program's winning games that they used to lose this year. Everything is going well right now. So please, relax on the uniforms.
Ray says it here. He said every uniform has a checkered past in the last 20 years.
We lost plenty wearing home oranges. We lost in smoke uniforms. We've lost on stormtroopers. We've lost
combats were my favorite back in the day.
We've lost every which way. It ain't the color of the uniform. It's the dudes wearing the uniform. And this year we got dudes.
No, listen, I will say one narrative that you kind of hinted at was the quarterback killer narrative with Mario, because there was this narrative that Mario somehow ruined Justin Herbert when he was at Oregon. And when in reality, they won 12 games. They had a great offense. They finished top 5. Herbert's never won like that again. I don't believe he currently has a winning record and hasn't had one really since he's been in the NFL. So in terms of killing quarterbacks, I don't think that was ever true. But when you see Cam Ward not only, perform, but elevate his game to a level beyond what he had ever played at, mostly because of his supporting cast, the narrative goes away. And I would say Mario, really, he's the new Lincoln Riley. Because
wow, now that is a take.
Well, listen to me. When you look at Oklahoma, how they were built, you had, how do you pronounce his name? Badenboff? Pete, help me out here.
I don't even know where you.
They had a pull up the picture of the old Oklahoma or current Oklahoma offensive line coach. Oklahoma had a fat offensive line coach who used to take glamour shots. Like he'd have modeling pics, looking like a serial killer. But the guy is an unbelievable offensive line coach. Badenboff. Pull some of Badenboff's glamour shots and put him in the thing.
Whoa.
You see this guy?
This was in our chat the other day.
This dude looks like Jim Tom Sula, but without the mustache.
With a lot more vanity. The guy takes glamour shots. He does the Zoolander face. Anyways, we'll get the pictures so you see what I'm talking about.
This is.
Pull up the picture. Yeah, so Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley always had a big offensive line that protected the quarterback. There it is. Look at that guy right there, man. That's blue steel. That is blue steel in the Midwest, in the Great Plains. Look at that, man.
What does this have to do with anything?
All right, so my guy right here.
This is a classic D-Money.
Yeah, I love the picture, but what is this?
When Lincoln Riley was rolling, when he was cranking out first overall picks, Heisman Trophy winners, which, by the way, Cam Ward's in contention for both of those.
Yeah, he's co-favorite right now with Genty.
And when he was bringing in transfers, which, again, Ward was a transfer, you're trying to start a pipeline of Wards where this is the place to be. It wasn't just Lincoln Riley calling some great plays. I hate this smart guy offensive coordinator. Everybody loves these idiots that wear the tight sweaters and act all cool.
And visors.
Kingsbury, total bust.
Whoa, he's doing a great job right now.
Head coach.
Yes, as a
total
head coach.
Bust.
Yeah.
Lincoln Riley, complete and utter bust at USC. I mean, it's been a few years now. The guy sucks.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Scott
Tom
Frost?
Herman. Scott Frost. Yeah. Put him in that category. Tom Herman. These were guys. I'm on the message board world. So I see these guys like, look at the swag, man. Look at this guy. Look at he grabs his wife. Like, look at his cool clothes. These guys all sucked. Now, what really made Lincoln Riley what he was my man right here, Blue Steel Badenboff.
No, it's not the Heisman Trophy. It's not the run of Heisman Trophy contenders.
Those guys had offensive linemen in front of them with size and pass protection, and they could run the ball when they needed to. That's why Oklahoma won, and that's why Caleb Williams, who last I checked was a Heisman Trophy winner, first overall pick. Did he win anything? Did they do anything close to what Mario did in the Pac-12?
They lost to Tulane in the Cotton Bowl.
Correct. So the secret sauce was the trenches. So what I'm saying is Mario hasn't necessarily changed his philosophy. He's just added to it with a certain talent and, like you said, built around that talent, but he's not going and trying. Mario's not wearing these tight, trendy sweaters trying to show everybody how smart he is. He is building from the trenches, and you had Cam Ward have a great game. But what made, you were there, what was it that made everybody leave that stadium early and demoralized? Was it Cam Ward's passes, or what made him leave demoralized and emasculated?
The Damian Martinez run into the end zone. That was just full on man style, a great old school run. It beat them not just physically, but emotionally. That fan base left, and it was puzzling because of the way that he did it.
You've seen it for 20 years. How many times have we watched Alabama and Georgia? You leave with a different feeling. Oklahoma used to be like that because they had that too. Joe Mixon and some of the big backs they had, and first-round offensive linemen, second-round offensive linemen. But when you separated my man Blue Steel from Riley, now they don't have they have a quarterback problem. They have a lot of problems with Venables. And then Riley over here, he's got no physicality to his team. The team is just completely ill-suited for the Big Ten because of the lack of physicality. This offense, to me, is a Cristobal offense, but with a Heisman Trophy winner plopped in. And there's other guys that are like Cam Ward that maybe they're in the 50th ranked offense, which I believe Washington State was last year. They're putting up stats, but they have bad pass protection, which Washington State had last year, close to last in the nation in sack percentage. Running game was the worst in the country for Washington State. Now it's Florida State. We'll get into that in a second. There's talented guys like that. You got to plug them into this machine and then really see what they can do. And that is what Mario is selling as the new Lincoln Riley, the real Lincoln Riley, not the fraudulent thing we built up in the media.
Great points, great argument, well crafted. You would probably have a better idea of what a Mario Cristobal offense is than I do. But year to year, there hasn't been real cohesion there. I know who he's brought in as offensive coordinator in the past, why it hasn't worked out, the styles that we were told he would ideally like to run. But what we have right now is a cohesive staff, but on both sides of the ball. And I think Mario kind of flirted with the idea of airing it out a lot last year. Remember how good everybody was feeling about the offense after Texas A&M. You just had a quarterback that made him say, hold on, let's pull this back now. We can't trust him to not turn the ball over or at least rebound from those turnovers, because the turnovers aren't going to go away. It's a cost of doing business. There are guys like that. Baker Mayfield, Brett Favre. There's a question. There's a question of like, there is a level of healthy interceptions. I talked myself into that early on as a Baker Mayfield fan in the process that, yeah, he's got more interceptions than such and such, but that's because he's taking the chances and he's letting his players make plays on balls. I think some of that is healthy, but I think what is most important here, whether or not we want to label him as a new Lincoln Riley, which is out there, and that is an attention grabber. I think the most exciting thing, if you're a Miami fan, is Mario Cristobal is hard to pin down because he will get he will get the most out of his players. He will put his players in the best position to succeed. He is not opposed to admitting that he was wrong about things. He has capitulated some on the offense. He is now increasingly realizing the value in having a quarterback like this, giving that quarterback sway over the locker room. Little things like the uniforms, while they may be meaningless to guys like D-Money, that curries favor. That endears you to your players a little bit more. Think about the culture that Miami has instituted. Them having players-only meetings during bye weeks, not at the behest of the coaches. I think everything that Mario Cristobal has done has kind of bucked some preconceived notions about Mario Cristobal, some of them fair, some of them a little unfair. So this is very encouraging for Mario. And that is how I've made a decision on black uniforms against FSU into Mario Cristobal is the next Lincoln Riley. Look at all that. Look at all the moving parts that we had. It started with uniforms, and now the audacious take of he's the new Lincoln Riley.
Guys, I wanted to get to a couple of comments here. This is a good one from Miami Strikes. But at the same time, if you have any chickens you're not fond of in your neighborhood, maybe evoke some island spirits in the name of the black uniforms. We're here in Little Havana. Our studio is a couple blocks from the old Orange Bowl. So, Mike, you saw some chicken stock on the floor the other day on our way leaving here.
We did see chicken stock. Look, guys, every week FSU has lost to teams, some of them mid, that have not put up better than a C+ effort. When BC beat them, I'd say BC was bad in like 2 of the 3 phases of the game. Memphis, one of their worst performances of the season. Cal, I would have given them a D+, and they should have won that game. But hell, you could say that about every Cal game this year. It's not, I understand you want to apply the context, and guys do get up for rivalry games. We've seen some middling Miami teams compete with some really good FSU teams because of this rivalry, because we know it means more. But use your eyes. Use your eyes. I mean, Cam Ward could probably throw for over 200 yards by wearing cowboy boots the entire game. Like, he's going to get his. So I don't care what he's wearing. I don't. You have an offense that puts up points. And if you want to put yourself out there, and I understand there's talent on that side of the ball, this is a defensive line unit that Nick Saban co-signed as the best D-line in the country. But we've seen 7 games worth of sample here. Miss me with the uniforms mattering here. Miss me with all of that. This is an opportunity to wear black to a funeral. This is a flat track, and you better respond in kind.
Yeah, my only worry with this game is cheap shots and injuries. That's literally my only worry.
I think that's fair.
Game. That's my only worry with this game.
I think that's fair. I think I think we can all expect FSU to get in a little bit extra there.
Yeah, they're so undisciplined. They're so dejected. That's really my only concern from a just any kind of substantive standpoint with this game. With the uniform, last thing I'll say on it is there's been players who like to talk about other teams, make predictions because it puts pressure on themselves. So if I'm Morrow, I'm saying, look, Cam, you can wear these uniforms, but you better play the game of your life. You know, this is you're telling me that you are going to play well. So I'll trust you, do your thing. So we'll see if Cam holds up his end of the bargain.
Guys, we have breaking news here. This is important. I'm going to try to pull up a picture. Let's see if it's on Twitter, but we just received a text message. Actually, yes, it's on Twitter. Rudy Fernandez tweeted it out himself. Xavier Restrepo has been tapped into Iron Arrow Society at great. Miami. And here it is, a great picture of Rudy along with Joe Echeverria, new full-time president at Miami, and Xavier Restrepo. So I thought that was pretty important to interject here. So there you go.
That's fantastic. I mean, it does the right things across the board.
Yeah, he joins. You see, pulling up a comment here. This is an old comment, but YouTube user is actually a member of Iron Arrow. They were pulling up here in the chat. This generic
looks
YouTube
a lot
user
like
here. He himself is actually an Iron Arrow member. So shout out to YouTube user. Shout out to Xavier Restrepo for in this prestigious accolade. He deserves it. He is the best receiver in the ACC, although Concepcion did explode for 56 this week.
You forgot he attempted a pass.
Did he really?
He attempted a pass. So you're taking that away from his total yardage. Yeah, you completed a pass.
Honestly, he's a very good overall player.
He is a very good. Thank you. We're not doing that. We're not doing that again.
I say that without an ounce of sarcasm.
We got a good question here from Callie Kane 818. Does this team have similarities to the LSU 2019 team, both on offense and defense? What is your opinion? I mean, look, the main difference for me is that the wide receivers that LSU had on those teams, you got Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, 2 of the top 5 receivers in the NFL right now. Terrace Marshall was also on that team. It was a high NFL draft pick. The offense, as explosive as it's been, I would like to see what they look like against some of these, top 5, top 10 teams in the country and how they match up there on the outside. And then look, the LSU defense probably was a little bit ahead of where Miami's defense is at this point of the season right now. I think the biggest comparison, obviously the quarterback position there and the production from that standpoint. But if you're looking at Miami here in terms of the positive standpoint, like as much as the defense has struggled the last couple years here, the last few weeks, it doesn't need to be a dominant defense with the way the offense is putting up points. You need slight improvements, obviously, in some key areas. But we're looking at the metrics the other day. I mean, the defense has been solid in a multiple categories. Obviously, the back end of the defense has not been very good, but yeah, and giving up the big plays.
And Mike's got steam coming out of his ear. So let's what do you got on this one?
Not at my worst would I invoke that team when comparing it to Miami. That is a special team. The comparison is they had an experienced transfer quarterback. That's where the comparisons stop. You're talking about what a team, the only team really of my lifetime that I would put in the class of the 2001 Miami Hurricanes. Let's take a beat.
Yeah.
Let's take a beat. You're comparing this Miami team that has struggled to get over the line against Virginia Tech and Cal and I understand that happens over the course of the season, but this is very much a team that proves Miami can be in the conversation and can get us closer to where we want to be. I am not talking national championship, although I think it's a funny year. And when we get into the playoffs, trust me, I'll be right there with you and being able to talk myself into being able to hang with anybody in the nation. But for the love of all that is holy, do not invoke that LSU team when talking about this team right now, in which one voter presently has them at 11th in the AP.
Yeah, I mean, that LSU team averaged 48 points a game. This Miami team only averages, 48 points a game. So it's hard to compare the two offenses, right? But no, I
think the teams that LSU was beating also in that.
Yeah, I agree with you. A different composition, right? With the two Hall of Fame receivers and the Hall of Fame quarterback talents. That's a unique setup. I do think their defense is a little better. I know I went on this whole Lincoln Riley Oklahoma rant. I really do think this team is exactly like those teams, but on both ends of the.
Well, hopefully they can win meaningful games.
Well, look, those teams went undefeated, and they were a throw away from beating Georgia to go to the championship. I mean, those were good teams.
That was a great
top 5 teams. So I don't think that's an insult to say that they're like those teams. I think strength, weakness wise, they are. If there's one way that Miami's better than those Oklahoma teams, I would say is I don't recall those Oklahoma teams. They had their occasional guys getting drafted on defense, even though the defenses weren't good. But I don't recall those Oklahoma teams ever having a Ruben Bain-Barron kind of combo on the edge, and then you throw Messidor and Alston. So I think that might be one advantage that Miami has over those Oklahoma teams, where they can't, consistently dominate on defense, but they can kill some drives with the pass rush.
This show would be doing everybody a disservice if they worried and invoked curses on uniforms out of one side of their mouth, and then on the other side of their mouth gave voice comparisons to those LSU teams. All right. So pick a side. You're either the type of person that's nervous because of the uniform that we're wearing, or you think we're 2019 LSU. This is a strange place that we've taken these. Like, these are out to the extremes. There is one comment from 253 from Gio Kane that I just want to address. You don't have to put it up there. Why not tell the fans to wear black? Yeah, I made note that there was a promotional tidbit that I'm sure that you've all seen. Homecoming week, wear orange. Most people were thinking, since they flashed the orange, all orange look, is this an orange out and the players will wear that? You're overthinking it. The promotional calendar is totally separate from what the leadership council and truly just the head and shoulders leader of this team will decide. There was a couple of weeks to make that decision, but the promotional calendar came out at the beginning of the season. This, as I understand it, was fairly recent, the decision to wear black.
But if you do want to wear black, Croqueta County, Islas Canarias, you see the shirt I'm wearing right now. If you want to show your support for the #1 Cuban restaurant in the world, show everybody where you're from. If you know, Croqueta County, Islas Canarias, the best Cuban restaurant in the world. And again, croquetacounty.com is where you get the merch. All the same company, all the same brand, all the same image of pure Miami, but you get it at croquetacounty.com. Here we got the food.
Look at that palomilla. Oh. Qué rico.
You worked hard on that accent there, Pete.
I mean, it's in me. I'm Cuban, man. What can I say?
Everybody always thinks that your name throws people for a loop always with the Ariz. You've got a lot of Lebanese comparisons.
Yeah.
But again, authentic Cuban cuisine, 40 years in, the Express in Dadeland. People, the only complaint I've ever heard about Islas Canarias is people don't live necessarily where the restaurant is, so it's a trek. Anthony Bourdain famously made the drive for his show, but it's not next to everybody's business or where they live. Dadeland, everybody's next to Dadeland somehow, some way. Islas Canarias Express in the dining pavilion, #1 spot in the dining pavilion, period. Puts Chick-fil-A to shame. Islas Canarias Express.
Ali Kane 818 is pushing back a little bit, and he's kind of saying, well, you said these stat-wise, when you look at both our team now and that team in 2019 and similar stats, I'm not saying the offense is close to that team. I think the two major things to me is that the talent level at wide receiver, as great as those guys have been, those are going to go down as all-time greats in the NFL. And again, the schedule that LSU went through that year, I have to obviously go back and look at it, but we understand some of the games that they were playing there were a little bit different caliber than what Miami's had to face.
A little bit, to say the least. And if you look at the stats, you'd convince yourself that Sonny Cumbie was better than Joe Montana.
Oh, we're doing this again with the stats.
Well, it's just stats tell you what you want. You saw politician D Money squirm under the swinging light of interrogation when I said, well, Xavier Restrepo's got to have better stats than Michael Irvin. Is he a better receiver than Michael Irvin? And the guy slithered his way from answering that as quick as he could.
I was very happy you brought up that example because Michael Irvin on the podcast with Treasure Wilson, Mason Betha, and the great Cameron said on the subject of Xavier Restrepo, it's a national podcast. It is what it is. Great podcast. Second best to Canes Inside Daily. And of course, the Dan Le Batard Show. He said, Michael Irvin, quote, about Xavier Restrepo, he is one of us. Not Canes receivers, not Canes alum, meaning the elite of the elite Canes receivers. Michael Irvin said he is one of us.
He is.
So in this case, the stats do tell the story with Restrepo because they belong in the same conversation per Restrepo.
Yeah, they do belong in the same conversation in that, hey, Xavier Restrepo has better stats than Michael Irvin. He was pretty damn good. Yes, he was. Ask any football fan ever who was the better receiver.
See,
you're putting them in the same tier, and contextually, yeah, I agree. They deserve to be in the same tier. But stats are funny in that respect, is what I'm telling you. And if you want to look at the offensive output for Miami, yes, worthy comparison. Now, stats are different than actual talent level. Jamar Chase ain't walking through that door. He walked through the door in Columbus. Okay? We've had to develop guys. Let's give Xavier Restrepo his flowers because he ain't Justin Jefferson. And the fact that he has the output of a Justin Jefferson is objectively insane. I am not knocking guys when I invoke the fact that their talent doesn't exactly meet their statistical output. What I'm doing is I'm giving them credit because they are overcoming talent deficiencies to even be in that conversation. Spin it how you like. You want to, in this show, I have certainly carved out a lane for myself where people think I am negging Xavier Restrepo. I am praising that dude because this does not make sense. You did the talent evaluation. You knew what kind of recruit he was coming in here. Not in your wildest dreams did you think he'd be this. Not in your wildest dreams did you think he'd be passing Michael Irvin. When I would love to pull up your additional notes. Maybe Braxton Berrios comparisons. Not Michael Irvin. This is all-time stuff that Xavier Restrepo is doing.
No, there's no question. First of all, Canes Inside was all over Xavier Restrepo. I thought he was going to be a DB because he actually started off as a DB back in Monarch High.
Just like Michael Irvin.
The toughness, the go-to nature. Again, don't talk to me. Talk to Mike because Mike told you we are here.
One thing that Mike didn't say was Xavier Restrepo is better than me.
Oh, I didn't say that either. I didn't say that either.
No, you didn't. Which you didn't. You avoided a direct question.
Mike, you're saying you take the bait every week on this.
I will always take the bait on this. But no, what set me off here is the statistics conversation. I understand why our offense looks good in terms of effectiveness. Yeah, absolutely. In that class, the numbers speak for themselves. The time of possession, the Cam Ward's numbers. He's going to. You want to talk about rewriting a record book? Cam Ward is going to do that here. But we're talking about Joe Burrow, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. We're talking about Cam Ward, who was a 0-star in high school. He wasn't Mr. Football in Ohio like Joe Burrow. We're talking about a guy that D-Money projected as potentially a DB. We're talking about Isaiah Horton. This is a ragtag group of guys that are fulfilling a promise and going so far beyond that right now. It's apples and oranges. It's the fact that you can even make an argument for that is a testament to Shannon Dawson and the work that each individual player on that offense and collectively has put in this season.
What I'll say is they're different. The LSU is so unique because you were so particularly dominant in one area, which is the two great receivers and then Joe Burrow. That's just such a unique dominant combination. Their running game, even though Clyde Edwards-Helaire did get drafted first round and had some great games, they didn't have like a consistent power running game like Miami does, where they just dominate you on short yardage with big backs. Miami's a dominant short yardage team.
We're there after 1 week. They flipped the narrative that much, and
we got stopped on third and short or fourth and short all year.
We've been great.
So we had that in our bag, which again, not every explosive team does. Of course, we have Cam Ward, who is a Heisman type quarterback. We do not have dominant receivers like a Jefferson or Chase that are going to be top 5 picks. We got 4 good ones. Our tight end is significantly better than Randy Moss's kid, who was the tight end for LSU.
Yeah, we have a first round.
I believe our offensive line is better. They certainly did not have anybody like Francis Malinois. I think overall our offensive line is better.
Fair enough.
So it's a different type of approach. What characterizes this Miami offense is balance and the ability to do every single thing you need to do. It's not as top heavy as that LSU team, but look, I'm just going to go through. I'm using team rankings. I always use this FBS versus FBS. Here are the top scoring offenses every year. So this year was Miami, or is Miami. Last year, LSU, Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas. I'd say they're pretty good.
Yeah,
right?
They're all doing really well.
We believe in them. 22 was Tennessee, which is when they went crazy with Heupel. Hooker was a great receiver. They had NFL wide receivers. 21, Ohio State, which was a dominant group. That was Justin Fields and those four first-round receivers or however many they had. Then you had 2020 at Alabama with Mac Jones, which was unreal, that COVID year. That was probably the best of all these, in my opinion, as far as the balanced offense. Then 2019 was LSU. The point I'm making is when you're number one, like those teams had like 6 first-rounders on their teams. I mean, those teams were loaded on offense, and I don't think anybody's going to say those were not legit offenses. I'm not saying LSU's not the best one. I'm saying that you're in a conversation statistically with great offense.
So much NFL talent on those recent examples, but I think if you go back a little bit further into the early teens, you'll find some Texas Tech teams. So in the aughts, you'll find some Texas Tech teams that I think are truer comps. Guys with quarterbacks that weren't highly touted, guys that developed and perfected a system that weren't really big NFL guys outside of maybe say Michael Crabtree, that just really maximize their individual talent. I think Miami has more NFL talent than those Texas Tech teams, but we're invoking an LSU team that for me is among maybe 4 teams in history that if there's a cocktail reception for greatest ever that can look at 2001 Miami in the eye and say, I wish we had to go.
They do not look Miami in the eye. Let me just get a quick rant off here. There's just so little comparison between LSU 2019 and 2001 Canes. Miami would beat them by 2 touchdowns. I'll tell you why. Very simply. That team, who was their best defensive player on the LSU 2019? Answer in the chat if you want. I know the answer. Who would you say is the best player in 2019 LSU defense?
They had a good corner, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah.
Derek Stingley,
who hasn't been very good.
He's good, but whatever. He's okay. True freshman Derek Stingley was the best player on LSU's defense.
Fair enough.
Okay.
No, I know where you're going with this. I don't necessarily disagree.
The best player in Miami's defense, of course, Ed Reed, who was 23 years old. Sean Taylor was not even playing on Miami's defense because he was too young. Mm-hmm. If Sean Taylor, not NFL Sean Taylor, not the one that was the best DB in the country as a junior, if true freshman Sean Taylor, who did not play for us, was on LSU 2019, he'd be the best defensive player on the team by miles at that point.
Yeah, I agree.
Because the true freshman Stingley was the best player on the team. So the comparison on defense is not even in the same universe. And the age.
Was Devin White on that team too?
No, they had Queen.
I think he's too old.
I think it was Queen. But they did not have – but, he's okay.
Do you think the only question in debating this, and I love that during FSU week, this is the game that intrigues us, 01 Miami versus 2019 LSU.
It doesn't intrigue me.
This is where do you think Ken Dorsey's game, because the game of college football has evolved. You see what Cam Ward can do with his arm, and you watch some old Ken Dorsey tape, and he went about things a very different way. Do you think Ken Dorsey could be effective?
First of all, Ken Dorsey didn't get sacked until the 8th game of the season that year.
Right.
And LSU, can you name me one person on their defensive line that year?
I mean, it's quite the challenge.
Okay, so, and these guys should be playing right now. It's 2019. This is not that long ago. So they wouldn't have touched Ken Dorsey, number one. Number two, Ken Dorsey, what people don't appreciate, you're right. I think you said a great point. I totally agree, which is when you go back and watch Ken Dorsey's throws, you don't realize how ugly they were.
It was bad.
But what I think people don't appreciate about Dorsey because of the way he looked, he was sneaky athletic. And I say that because Butch Davis offered him not because he was playing football. Butch Davis saw him as a basketball player.
Really?
And that's how he offered him.
You talk about manipulating the pocket.
Just being a playmaker. So Ken Dorsey, if you go watch, sometimes he sat in the pocket all day because he had the best offensive line. But a lot of times he was getting rid of it so fast because he was a point guard by nature. And of course, he's now an NFL offensive coordinator. He just got named the play caller. Right?
Yeah, for Miami FSU week, we have Ken Dorsey officially calling plays and relaying those plays to Jameis Winston.
So if you put a great one right there, if you put a point guard, an NFL offensive coordinator with the joystick, and you're not going to hit him, and the windows are big enough in college that he can make that throw, doesn't have to be perfect because we're talking about college players, not pros. Again, who's LSU's defense that's going to be giving him an NFL look? he can get the ball to point A to point B, and the decisions are going to be at an NFL offensive coordinator level. So he's not going to be Joe Burrow in terms of playmaking, but for what he has to do on that team, you're not going to feel the difference as much as you do in an NFL game where you got to deal with a lot more rush. You got to deal with a lot tighter windows. The weaknesses get exposed more. Whereas in college, the strengths, NFL offensive coordinator mind gets elevated. And of course, he had the best players in the country around him.
What has LSU thinking, has me thinking LSU has a chance is the grind, week in, week out competition that LSU team faced wasn't what Miami faced. And you saw that they almost got caught a couple times versus BC, versus if Wilford brings down a catch against them, the team might win that, because they didn't face week in, week out real top of the line competition that had loaded with NFL talent that would maybe make Ken Dorsey look a little bit more human over there. I'm not saying LSU would win that game, but I'm saying in my lifetime, out of all the teams that I've seen that could put up a fight and present challenges, it's certainly that one. Because we had guys like Buchanan, we had Rumpf, we had great secondary help that could go to battle with guys like Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. Joe Burrow's back there throwing the ball. Be a hell of a game to watch.
Yeah, and I think we go back to the point of balance, bringing it back to this 2024 Miami Hurricane team. Balance, the ability to play the game you want to play. In that hypothetical matchup, and this is the last thing I'll say about it, just so I want to transition back to the real world, is, if you're 2001 Miami, you're going to want to run the ball with Clint Portis, Frank Gore, Willis McGahee, and keep that offense off the field. Miami has the ability to do that with what they have in the running game, but they haven't done it yet because the defense just hasn't gotten up. We haven't had the chance to get that spread. Felt like we were about to do it in that Louisville game. I'm sure he felt that way in the stadium before they returned that kick. Felt like we were just going to start pounding him and running it and control the game. Then they took the kick. I
do want to highlight what they did in the running game, because I haven't had an opportunity to talk about it. And kudos to Damian Martinez, who very clearly, look, I've been probably a little bit more critical. I've just been laying it out how it's been. Ineffectiveness versus effectiveness. I think you can, even with that big game that he had, which was his best game against Louisville, he's starting to come online. Against Cal, he helped make winning plays in the passing game. In this, it was those moments that salted the game away in the running game. He was pretty tough to watch for the first 3 quarters of this game. And it was very clear to me that Miami made a decision in that bye week in evaluating their talent, like Fletcher's the more effective back. So let's invert the snap count. The snap count is pretty similar, and Martinez, as he grew into the game, got rewarded with more carries. What excited me about that Martinez performance, not just because we had a signature run and he finally looked like he was more comfortable as that game went on, is, and I don't know if the cameras caught it, Martinez, you would think after the optics are he's been benched. The optics are he's moved down the depth chart. That might actually even be the reality, even though they would argue we don't have an RB1 or a room. What Martinez was doing on the sideline in terms of being a good teammate, forcing the issue to make sure everyone on that Miami sideline knew, and that player that was in that backfield at the time knew, I have your back. I am a supportive teammate. It speaks volumes to the culture that Mario Cristobal and this team have built. It speaks volumes to the leadership and that leadership council that we referenced before, and all the great work that they're doing there. Another observation that I have is we spent close to 15 minutes on LSU 2019 versus Miami 2001. During FSU week. And if I'm an FSU fan right now, I would pay attention to that, because that conversation, that game is way more interesting than this game. And I can understand why you think this rivalry means something. FSU has been really bad. That is not a hot take. That is a fact. And if Miami is going to continue invoking these conversations about 2019 LSU, you go out there to Hard Rock Stadium, you rip their heads off, you beat them up, you wear black to the funeral, and you make this.
You wear orange to the funeral.
Well, yeah, the fans, you wear orange to the funeral, while the players, the pallbearers, are out there going to be carrying that casket to there. Remember the 3 years that we've had of banter, and then the 2 years of Cristobal, where they brought out all our old tweets about Mike Norvell, thinking that they had won this. They only won battles, my friend. They're not winning this war. And we win a major battle in Miami Gardens on Saturday night with a record number of recruits there. I'm curious to hear your guys' takes on that. There are some really impressive names, not just for this class, but 2026 as well. This is an important game, but it is an important game for Miami more so to once again cement our state. Now, once again, cement, you guys made the wrong choice at head coach. We made the right choice. It got a little dicey there. We were all a little nervous, but our way is the right way. And I'm curious if you're not worried about, if you're like me, I'm not worried about this game. We're going to go into it in a second. I'm not worried about what we wear. Only thing I want to do is beat the ever-loving crap out of this team on Saturday and remove doubt, because the narrative has gotten out of hand. And we can talk about that in a little bit. Miami's in close games. They're not blowing anybody out. They just covered a 4.5-point spread against a team that has 3 losses on their record, all against ranked teams, all by 1 score.
They should have hit the alt spread, which I had.
Like, narrative's gone crazy. They were in a close game against Cal. All they do is play close games. Cal has literally been in a close game every game this season. There isn't one team that says we controlled the game against Cal in this nation. They should be undefeated. And Virginia Tech, we mentioned it last week, they've really grown from that performance against Miami. They've kind of galvanized. And this is a team that, if I'm Clemson, I look at that game at Virginia Tech, at Blacksburg, and I'm a little worried about that game. That's a game where they can get caught. So for me, this is about erasing all that BS narrative that is done by people that aren't watching and bad faith aggregate accounts that want to seize on, well, Miami doesn't win if they don't get this call. If we're going to start doing this in the third quarter of every game, everybody gets calls, guys. It's football. I want to, for 1 week, just give myself a respite from this BS narrative about Miami and leave zero doubt that we can assert our will and take a bad football team, because that is a bad football team, and positively destroy them. Maybe the way that 2019 LSU did to certain opponents, or the way that 2001 Miami Hurricanes did against certain opponents. This is a bad football team. You need to treat them like Ball State. You need to treat them like FAMU.
I'll take it even back further, all the way to the Third Punic War. The Romans, after winning.
He's doing one of those things again.
You see this? They salted the earth. They salted the city of Carthage so nothing would ever grow again. And has Carthage been ranked in the top 25 in the last few centuries?
I haven't seen them.
Yeah, I haven't seen them in a while. I've looked them up. I had to look it up.
They did offer Cam Ward initially at a high school. He was debating there. Or, yeah, he had one. I love this. That's our hashtag for this game. Salt the earth.
Love it. I had to confess, I used that 4 years ago when we destroyed FSU.
Well, let's repurpose it. Repurpose it. Salt the earth. It's canon.
And the funny thing is, 2020, I did that podcast, Salt the Earth. Miami destroyed FSU in Hard Rock. Remember, that was the COVID game where it didn't have the full house. But
man, what a terrible time that was.
I was there with my kid. It was fun, but it was not that many people there.
I did drinking seltzers in my car, telling me it's okay to leave and going. That was awful.
Well, that was the one we won, 2020.
Yeah. We won. It was just a terrible time in everybody's life.
FSU was losing, so it was pretty awesome. But
it
wasn't as good as it could have been.
Yeah, you want to know how I celebrated? Looking down 3 rows and doing like, what a E.
Right.
Terrible.
The demolition man. But so I thought FSU was done after that. And they had like a rebirth with this just lottery portal hit. They didn't do it through recruiting, but they did have a rebirth because that was like when Travis Hunter embarrassed them. So it looked like they were going to be done. They had this rebirth with the portal, and now they're kind of back to where everybody thought they would be back then, which is no recruits, no talent, just a struggling program. So
hindsight is Jordan Travis was a really special player. And quite honestly, with even more hindsight, when you consider the arguments made against FSU to not enter the CFP, which was solely Jordan Travis is injured, Jordan Travis, if the media had more time to establish a narrative, probably should have won Heisman. And that would have been a nice little consolation prize for FSU, given everything that they had. Because in retrospect, and I know that Jaden Daniels was great, Jordan Travis should have been Heisman.
Yeah, he was a stud. 2017, Canes Inside, we were all over Jordan Travis, a multi-sport guy. His brother played in the MLB, baseball player. This guy was super talented, went to Benjamin, a smaller school, but had really, really impressive highlights and just attributes and stats and athletic background. That's when Miami got Jaron Williams late. I was hoping they'd get on Travis and pull him from Louisville and bring him in here and develop him. Kind of had to win a roundabout way and they're going to FSU.
Just did the Chihuahua chopper meme. As soon as he said Jaron Williams, I just kind of left my body for a second there.
I wonder what he's up to. I remember, by the way, I got to give a shout out. People always underestimate just like blink scouting, let's call it. My man Harold Martinez, former third baseman for the Miami Hurricanes, led the ACC in home runs.
Dragonfly.
Friend of the show.
Fellow Dragonfly.
This guy, he watches. He's a huge avid sports fan, but he'll watch he'll tune into the Heat season game in the middle of the playoffs and have snap judgments on the whole team. He saw Jaron Williams one time walking through the halls, and he said, "I don't like how this guy's dressed, shabbily dressed. He's kind of like an emo guy. He's not going to work." I was like, "Come on, man! The guy just had a great senior year. He's rising the ranks. He just had a great practice."
The Manning Passing Academy outplayed Trevor Lawrence.
Sure enough, Harold was right. So sometimes those snap judgments play off. Hopefully,
Navon Donaldson's had me cracking up today. Yeah. His first question was, "What's the status update on Zion Nelson?" We all should be. And that's as political as I'm getting today. We all should be. Moving on.
Tallahassee will be voting yes after this one, just to kind of ease the pain.
We need the super majority.
Should we talk about the game a little bit? I mean, it's tough to really break things down with as bad as Florida State has been, but we had Clay Fink on earlier. We recorded for our show later this week from Knowles 247, and there wasn't much optimism from Florida State's side, and a lot of the stuff coming out from their media this week has kind of been like it's not good. I mean, their vibes are really bad right now. I think
how did they look in the race? The practice.
I don't know if they've been racing.
I haven't seen video. They haven't allowed. They've embargoed.
Good morning, Miss Carol.
What color hoodie? If it's gray hoodie, Mike.
I think it was gray.
Oh boy, that means we're only going to win by 40.
We asked Fink about the vibes in practice directly.
Toxic.
He said they weren't good.
Toxic.
We gave him every opportunity to say that the team was better, and he did not take the bait at any time. We gave him every chance to say that they had a chance to win, and he was not. You
can knock me for giving that team bulletin board material. Look, man, if Miami comes out flat against FSU, it's not because I said something on the internet. All right, but the spread is 21.5, and it's only 21.5 because you've lollygagged and maybe sleptwalked through a couple of wins recently. And because this is a rivalry, it should be hard. It's a dead-ass FSU team. Break their necks.
And look, I'm not just saying this because I've been pounding the table for the running game and being physical and all that stuff. I really do want to protect Cam Ward a little bit. The only thing these guys can do is rush the passer occasionally. I'm sure they're going to be playing their most excited game. I'm deeply worried about some nonsense with Cam Ward. Late hits, those low hits, those kind of things.
Well, I would pull them out midway through the second quarter because you're up 35.
Well, I think one thing we could do that was going to accomplish both goals. Marvin Jones Jr. and Patrick Payton are absolutely abysmal against the run. They're two of the worst run-stopping defensive ends that I've ever seen in college football ever. If you've seen worse in the comments, let me know. But these guys are horrible. They don't like to do it. They don't have the body to do it. They don't have the technique to do it. They're horrible. We have Francis Malinois. We have Jalen Rivers. Pound the tackles. Let Damian Martinez get outside a little bit, maybe some more stretch runs, which he was so good at earlier in his career, and just really, really pound those defensive ends. And that'll set up play action. That'll set up more things. You can get explosive plays.
Are you invoking Marshawn Lynch on 60 Minutes? You remember his quote?
No, what he
Run
said.
through a mother's face. They can only handle that when you do it over and over and over again. They lose the will to do it. And then the 60 Minutes journalist asks him, "Can you clarify that?" He's like, "Run through a mother's face."
Why was Marshawn Lynch on 60 Minutes?
Why wouldn't he be? You know that he's actually they've been doing some research, and they may the Democratic Party in Berkeley may make a run at him to run for mayor of Oakland.
Really?
Yeah, because his Q rating is so high. He's beloved. He's just got bipartisan support that he may actually run for political office. I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah, that's the next phase of Marshawn Lynch's career.
We won't get political here. He did get a huge pop at College Game Day. I got to say,
he came out on the golf cart. Yeah, dude, the guy's an icon.
Yeah. Well, anyway, shout out to Marshawn Lynch. Shout out to the current Marshawn Lynch, which is Damian Martinez of the Miami Hurricanes.
Okay, that's another crazy comparison, but we've been doing that a lot. Damian Martinez, keep making those runs, those beast mode runs. That's amazing. It's been a dynamic that's been missing from this university for a very long time. I think the last guy that was capable of it in our chat, someone mentioned Damian Barry.
Oh yeah,
which he was capable of that stuff.
That was Chance Max said that.
Fellow Dragonfly. So I want to see this FSU team quit. I want to see the sad shots of Mike Norvell knowing that his team has quit. And I think you're right. The best way to do that is to run through and you do that. Do the Marshawn Lynch stuff. So, and it helps protect Cam Ward, because I am a little worried too. We've seen that happen in this game. This game can get a little screwy there. It's not just their guys. We get pretty amped up, and we'll put ourselves in positions where we can potentially hurt ourselves. But
it would be pretty cool to see if they do have to pull him, or if they do, because they're up by so much. Emery Williams make
that pop, dude.
And Emery Williams.
What do you think that pop's gonna be?
Yeah, that would be
Emery.
awesome.
He should run the same exact play, and then just like flex the arm, or just like do the Henry Rowan Gardner, and just show that he's okay there. The pop that I'm gonna give Emery Williams when he checks into that game. Whew, he's special.
He might be able to like hit him with a little bit of Lex Luger, Miami Hurricane alum. With the titanium, right? Because when you injure yourself like that,
Jack Tunney didn't allow it at first. President Jack Tunney said that was an illegal move, and then he got approval from Jack Tunney, but he had to wear the pad over it.
Yep.
But then there were certain matches where the pad would come off.
Of course,
it was a foreign object.
Yep.
But it was inside of him.
Logan Paul's doing the same gimmick now. Emery Williams needs to do that, because I'm pretty sure he has titanium in his left arm. But we'll see. FSU, I think, if you do go right through their face mask, they will quit. They're quitters. I mean, this defensive line tried to quit on the team in the middle of the season. They've quit in the middle of the offseason, I should say, go in the portal. They've quit on the team numerous times during the games. Those guys will quit. They'll have a group photo in Turks and Caicos. I know Terrell Jackson had his photo in Turks and Caicos. Pete CB pulled that up during the show. But that's
how you know that program has actual problems, because I didn't even hear about that. They had too many things going on. If that were here, people would be freaking out, because there are actually things out there. All I had to worry about was whether or not Xavier Restrepo got into the golf course he was asking to get into.
Exactly.
At least he stayed within the country.
No, usually when you go to the tropical islands, that's means your season's over. Which I guess in his case, the season is over, but he still has to play.
Shame, man. I rated that player. And hopefully, look, I think that Miami still needs to get tested and get better. I'd like to see that offensive line rise to a challenge. You got to think Jackson's got to come up, step up for this game, right?
I mean, he'll maybe for a quarter. That's why you got to make him quit. There it is.
There was actually a better picture too. This is the one I just pulled up, but this was when he landed in Turks and Caicos. So
usually said, if you ain't got no paper, man, focus on yourself, man. It's talking to all of us, hating on him for taking the trip. It's just the old college trip to Turks and Caicos in the middle of the year.
Yeah, very new world that we have over there. It's professional. Like, do people complain when people in the NFL travel during their bye weeks?
No, I heard someone say, who will remain nameless, like, don't these guys know they can make money for playing in the NFL? They think they're done. Like, what are these guys even doing?
Well, I can understand why someone just kind of checks out on the sport entirely if they've had to.
Imagine seeing old Blue Eyes right here on the beach. This guy must be a beast out there, just showing off for the ladies, tanning it up. My man Badenbaugh. What's his real name? Badenbaugh.
He looks like
you want to.
He looks like that personal trainer from Night at the Roxbury.
Passport junkie.
All right, you want to make some picks?
Yeah, let's do some picks.
All right, let's make some picks. Do you have the graphic up?
Yes, there we go.
Wow, man, you were lightning quick with it, Peter.
Yeah.
Who was better last week? I think I was all right.
I was 2 for 2, so I wasn't great. It wasn't bad.
You went to your blue chippers.
Oh yeah, blue chip. FSU was on the blue chip list in error.
All right,
your strategy's a lot better.
All right, I'm gonna quickly run through mine. I'm taking Navy against Notre Dame. Historically, Notre Dame is a big favorite. They kind of struggle, although this is like medium. They've blown a lot bigger spreads. Trust me. What Notre Dame does well really doesn't affect this game against Navy, because Freeman can absolutely coach a secondary. Is Navy going to test them? Even though they've had injuries there, Navy, I look at the character of the individuals there. This could be, for other teams, a tricky situation. Start feeling yourself. This is huge, and you could almost overshoot the mark. These Navy guys are so mature. And what Notre Dame could possibly do well won't really affect Navy, in that Navy and the military academies, when you look at their tackling metrics historically, they're really sound tacklers. And so they're pretty disciplined. I would give Notre Dame an overwhelming edge when it comes to talent, especially on the outside. But that's not really where this game's going to be played. I think Navy is a capable team and can absolutely fall inside that number. So we're going to take Navy there because we don't trust Freeman as a big fave, and what they do well won't really help them against Navy.
Oh, let me throw one in here. Well, so this is a Canes podcast. So they're running the hybrid wing tee at Navy. Shout out to Belen Jesuit, gap down backer. But who struggled for many years in Miami against these gimmicky type of Georgia Tech offenses, different offense, style of offense, but same kind of gimmicky run scheme. Who killed us every single year with that? That was Georgia Tech.
Yeah, Paul Johnson.
Paul Johnson, man.
Who came from Navy.
So there you go. So Al Golden on the spot. That'll be a tough one for him. I like that pick.
Next one, I'm going to a blue chip D-money account. I haven't been super bullish on Alabama this year, but I don't think Missouri's any good. I don't know how they're ranked number 21, quite honestly. Kalen DeBoer and Bama need this. This is essentially a CFP eliminator, and it being at Alabama and Tuscaloosa, I just give Alabama the edge, and I think that they can win that game by 14 or more points. So this really has more to do with how bad I think Missouri is this year compared to where they were last year, a little further along. Oklahoma State, man, I've been so wrong on Oklahoma State this year. It's been a rough year. That whole conference is pretty screwy. This is a team that I thought could actually win this, but you want to talk about an eliminator match. This might be a loser leaves town match for the head coaches there. Baylor, rough year. Oklahoma State, both teams really failing to live up to expectations. Ultimately, I just think 7 points are too much. If you don't want to believe me, if you don't like my track record with Oklahoma State this season, I can't blame you. I was considering one of these games that's on. Well, you have LSU on your
I was
thing
about to make
twice.
a joke about that, Pete. I love LSU so much you put it there twice.
Yeah.
But there was another game that I gave consideration, and usually even if I have a good feeling about Miami, I keep them away from this, but I want a Stone Cold lead pipe lock, so I'm going Miami minus 21.5. We probably cover that number midway through the second quarter. This is a bad FSU team.
What's your number betting against FSU this year?
I'm going to lay, if I can find I haven't
Like
lost.
a record.
Yeah, no, immaculate. I lost the Cal game. That's all I've lost.
By the way, shout out your soup account. You bet against Miami last week. A little bad karma, but it's okay. We won the game.
Put the town on alert, and ultimately it was a one-score game. I was just playing the odds. I was betting threes instead of sevens.
But you had a pretty good record last I checked for the soups, right? What's your record right now?
For the soup, well, that's a different thing. For the soups, we've been eating. It's been a very profitable month for the super followers on X. But for the football season, I've been doing because I like the movie Dante's Peak. I've been putting the town on alert, upset alerts, and straight up money lines. That's been doing very well. Against the spread, we took a hit. We got a little nervous before. I think we caught so much guff for saying that it was going to be a one-score game from the Canes Inside fans. I don't know what to tell you. The spread said 4.5. Miami covered it. So people were so offended. Take it up with the lines makers. Like, I don't know. But I think Miami covers that. I will actually be looking at an alt line if I can find one. This feels like 35 plus for Miami.
There you go, D. I fixed it for you.
I appreciate you.
So the game that I wanted to seize on for you, let's go inverted. You explain yourself here because I actually kind of like UNLV at plus 3.5, but I stayed away. Why do you like Boise State?
I just think it's kind of a marquee game for Boise State. All the attention is going to be on them. All the attention is going to be on G&T, and big time game for that level. Who's going to rise to the occasion? I like Boise State to rise to that occasion. They have more experience in those kind of spotlight games. Of course, G&T is going to be playing out of his mind because that is going to be one of his Heisman Showcase games for a lot of people watching that particular game. There's no competition on TV. I like Boise State to rise to the occasion in that game, being more of a proven G5 program with experience.
This is another CFP eliminator. We have a couple of those. Again, another point for the restructuring of college football this year. We're getting meaningful games. I was told that we'd be diluting the week in, week out meaningful games. We got 2 college football playoff elimination games this week.
I mean, you had Georgia and Alabama, which everybody thought was the game of the year, and now no one cares. You know, Oregon at Ohio State was the game of the year last week. No one's going to care in a couple of days. But yeah, look, I see both sides. I'm not going to, with the bowls being what they became, which is just a total non-factor. You kind of needed this, so I've softened my stance.
We can get into another episode. My solution for bowl games,
but look at this.
Just put it at the start of the year.
The ghost of Nevon Donaldson wants to know: it's the biggest face turn of 2024 DJ volume. The DJ at the Canes games. This is a test for DJ volume. You don't talk about people on the spot. Night game, FSU
legacy.
This is a legacy game. For
legacy game.
The crowd's going to be a lot drunker. These are different kinds of drunks at the Rock as opposed to like an SEC stadium, a lot more ethnic crowd. You know what I mean? It's going to be people coming straight off the boat, straight off out of the tailgate, ready to rock and roll. You got to get the thing going. It's going to be a lot of loud ass Latins. I want to hear the right reggaeton notes in this game. I'm looking for the right hip hop notes. I would love to hear some JT Money. It's a different kind of challenge, I think, for a night Miami home game. Let's see what DJ Balling's up to the test.
Trick Daddy, JT Money, as you said, little party in the USA, maybe living La Vida Loca as well.
Yeah, the students. We'll see what the students do here for this game. It's a little past their bedtime, so we'll see how they. I
can't believe that they played Living La Vida Loca at a Miami football game.
Let's see here.
Although Party in the USA actually became like, it was like, what are we doing? And then afterwards it became such a joke that I enjoyed. Now I kind of legitimately want to hear Party in the USA.
Yeah, well, they do also the like living in a prayer like everybody else. Although I learned that a guy from Miami Beach High wrote "Living on a Prayer," so it's actually a Miami song in many respects. He wrote "Living on a Prayer."
He's just a fountain of knowledge.
It blew my mind. This guy, I wish I knew his name. It's on Wikipedia. He wrote "Living on a Prayer." He wrote the Aerosmith song with Alicia Silverstone, which went bungee jumping on.
Crazy,
amazing song.
Or Crying.
I think he wrote both.
They were both. Weren't they both Alicia Silverstone
and
videos?
And the other one, Liv Tyler. You brought Liv Tyler into
Yeah.
Spruce. By the way, how does she bungee jump? Like, did they ever explain how she bungee jumped with just a piercing and like not have her stomach rip off? Do you know what I'm talking about?
She bungee jumped.
You ever seen that video?
I did, but I didn't remember that.
If you're in the comments and you're of a certain age, let me know if you remember.
She bungee jumped, and the thing that was holding her was her belly.
Silverstone, like her boyfriend was trying to chase her dad, but she was kind of a rebel. So she jumped off a bridge backwards like this. And she jumped off a bridge backwards like this.
Yeah, but I thought it was around her waist, which is also like
incredibly.
Is that what
it was?
Yeah, I don't think she was.
I thought it was her belly button piercing.
That would not.
It made no sense. I don't think it made sense. How did she get the thing around her waist? Like, did she just strap up while people were chasing her? That didn't make any sense either. She just had it.
Well,
and she's flicking everybody off. What happened at the end of the crying video, Pete? I know you've never heard of any of this.
So what's her name?
Alicia Silverstone.
You said Silverstone.
Silverstone. Crying. Video.
Bungee.
Get to the bottom of this while we're talking about real
get
stuff.
A still of that final image, and let's get down to whether it was around her waist or what Dee thinks, which is she was strapped to a bungee cord around her belly.
I was like 10 when I saw this video.
Ring.
I would play it. I don't want to get hit.
No.
Just find out the mystery. Just find out. Just do some research. We're going to be talking about these picks. If you're in the comments,
have a commenter give you the answer and take credit for it.
No, but find out the answer to that before we're done with this. So Vanderbilt. It's a home game. There's a controversy with the net, which, by the way, explain the controversy with the net because I didn't understand it. You were talking about it before the show.
So there was we're in the age of misinformation. So there was an effective fake news story out there that said Vanderbilt has decided to temporarily put up a net around the supporters section for the opposing school because Texas was coming to town. And it had enough believability given the most recent Texas controversy that people would believe it. But Google has this new AI that if you search in there, the AI was essentially tricked by this fake news story. So when you Googled to say, hey, is Vanderbilt actually putting a net around the stadium, it came back and said yes. So a lot of people thought it was even more legitimate than what their eyes told them at first. But it turns out no netting. No netting there.
Like Blues Brothers, where they had the chicken wire in front of the performance so they can't throw the bottles at the stage.
Like
which, by the way, I heard that's a real thing.
Yes, it is. I've been to the Floribama at the Florida Alabama border. Very famous.
Great place.
Yeah, very famous roadhouse with like 7 live music stages, and one of them did have chicken wire around it.
Huh. Look at that.
I reckon.
All right, so we'll see if there's chicken wire here for the game. But with all that noise, Vanderbilt, there's a lot of attention on Vanderbilt. I don't think they're going to win. I'm not a huge Texas believer. I was not last week. Obviously, I picked against them. They're going to win this game, but I just think Vandy's going to keep it interesting for a while. There's too much on the line for Vandy, and they got enough at quarterback. They got enough in the stadium. They got enough athleticism and size that they can keep it close.
I want to give love to there's a lot of great Canes content creators out there. Through Smoke does a great job. I heard David and Gabby chew on potential hypothetical transfer portal targets, and they said something that had never dawned on me. Quinn Ewers, what Sark did in that game, in pulling him out of that game and putting in Arch, keep an eye on that, Because if he eventually loses his job, and shout out, I'm just borrowing your guys' take. If he puts Arch back in again, Quinn, who is supposed to be a first-round draft pick, can you go into the NFL with that narrative around you? Or do you test the transfer portal knowing that NIL has already been very financially beneficial to you? I'm just saying, it's a name to keep in mind.
Well, look, 2 of the top 3 teams in the country, Oregon, Dylan Gabriel, I believe, was in a pretty similar situation to what you just described. Will Howard for Ohio State, pretty similar situation to what you described. Great take by Lake. I'm not a big Ewers fan, but he's obviously would be one of the more interesting names if he jumped in. And you put him with this offensive line, you plug him in with the Lincoln Riley of the modern era. I could see the whole thing making a lot of sense as a solution. So
Pete, how are we doing on our research?
I mean,
are you just looking at the Barca score?
No, I'm not.
Are you just watching? I think I see the reflection of the game on your screen.
No, I wish.
What's the score in that? Both teams scored yet?
No, yes, 1-1.
Who scored?
Kane and Rafinha scored in the first minute for Barca.
Isn't it Rafinha?
Rafinha.
Yeah.
So,
you come from the MMA world.
There was an offside goal as well for Kane that was called back. But I did look it up, and what I did see is that it does look like it was around her waist. Maybe from the views that you can see, it was attached to the stomach, but it looked like it was like hidden underneath what she was wearing.
I kind of feel like I'd remember someone trying to do that.
First of all, by the way, I'm Pete. What research are you doing over there? Because it took me 2 seconds.
2-1 now, actually. It's 2-1 now, Barca.
He's just watching the game.
There's a giant article about whether it's a belly button ring or whether it's around her waist. And
listen, I'm not very good with non-sports research, let me tell you. So I looked it up, and all I could find was the pictures from it. So was I right, though?
I don't think it was around her belly button.
Here, look,
because that would be impossible.
Here, she's attached to a bungee cord, which I always thought was connected to her belly button ring.
That's what I said. It was around her waist.
Actually, look, they actually don't answer the question here in this. There's just someone else is as confused as I am. If you understand this video, let me know. An iconic video of the 90s. I mean, I was too young to understand what was going on. But shout out to Lisa Silverstone. Didn't really do anything after this.
No, she actually just had a movie with Benicio del Toro.
Lewandowski scored 5 minutes ago, Mike.
I had him to score. And I'm not talking about Excess Baggage, another movie that they did together. She was just in a movie with him.
Was it good?
I didn't watch it, but it came out recently.
Huh.
I think Timberlake was in it too. Timberlake, Benicio del Toro, and Alicia Silverstone. Pete, can you check that? You're just watching soccer.
I don't have anything up here right now.
Google Alicia Silverstone, Benicio del Toro, Justin Timberlake. That's how you do it.
That's some interesting stuff. I have no idea what you're saying.
Have you seen the internet theory? Have you seen the internet theory that Benicio del Toro and Brad Pitt are the same person?
Yeah,
that he goes out and he's proving what a good actor he is, and he has his whole other persona, and it's just Benicio del Toro.
Okay, so
hold on a second. I got it right here, Mike. It's on Wikipedia.
That Benicio del Toro and Brad Pitt are the same person?
It turns out Alicia had a rope attached to her navel ring, and at the end of the video, she could, like so many of us, say with total honesty, body piercing saved my life. This is a body piercing, I guess, enthusiast.
This is hard to follow right now.
What am I looking? I searched those 3 names. All I see is Reptile.
All right. Well, so LSU.
I think that's a movie.
All right. We'll get.
Yeah, Reptile 2023. Boom. That's how you do research, son.
Yeah, we'll get back to it.
You did it. Look at you.
Sounds like Chinese. All those names I've never heard of.
You've never heard of any of those? You've never heard of Justin Timberlake?
I know he's a star. I don't know who he is.
So,
man, you're something, man.
So LSU plus 2.5. I'm not a doubter of Texas A&M. I am a proud member of the Gig'em chat, which you never deleted, which is the funniest thing to me. I don't think I participated, but it's the only chat that Master hasn't left yet. I don't think. But
he's in the Glenvar FC chat as well.
So, anyways, yeah, I believe in what Texas A&M's doing. I believe what Elko's doing, but my guy Nuss. The man is unstoppable. His pocket presence. I don't want to compare him to Dan Marino, but in terms of his ability to elude in the pocket without being a mobile quarterback that's running around,
like Ken Dorsey,
kind of like Ken Dorsey.
Ken
Dorsey, Nuss, Marino. You put him in the same box. He is very, very talented. He made some unbelievable throws. I do believe he'll be the number 1 overall pick, hopefully next year. So Cam Ward this year, then Nuss next year. He bet on last year. He won. I like Nuss. You're plus 2.5 all day.
You're a big Nuss guy. I'm a big Gig'em guy. I used to be a big Wegman guy, and now he's got to prove something to me. But it seems as though for now that was the right move and getting away from Reed and handing the keys back over to Wegman. Weird fit there. I think we do this every year with LSU, where they get ranked like damn near number 5 in the nation just because they beat up on mid-SEC teams, and we're supposed to just forget that they lost to USC. And then at the end of the year, we're going to be gassing them up, and they're going to lose a big game because they're not that good. I don't understand what we're doing here with LSU. All that being said, I'm staying away from this game. Totally terrified. Gig 'em.
We'll see how it goes. That's actually probably the best game of the weekend. Illinois plus 21.5. I
like it.
Yeah,
I like it, D.
They're too good. I mean, look, they're not gonna win, but they're too good to get that kind of disrespectful score. They have a style that can grind out games and make them closer than they need to be. They got a veteran quarterback who's playing well. I don't know. 21.5. It's similar to Vandy. These teams are pretty good to be giving up that many points.
I think Oregon knows that Illinois is pretty good, and I'm not saying they are in that class, but when you get into those two super conferences of the Big Ten, SEC, so many look-ahead spots. Do not take a team like Illinois for granted. We were on Purdue last week, 27.5. We bet the spot, not the team. And look, they 35-0. Purdue's offense has given up on the year. The only time they ever showed fight was actually against this Illinois team. But I would trust this Illinois team to grind it out in ways that can fall inside that number. And it almost made my card. I'm glad it made yours.
Underrated receivers too at Illinois, and a quarterback's playing well. We talked about Boise State. I just think they rise to the occasion. So those are our week 9 picks. Fade us, pick us, do what you want.
We're doing all right on the air.
Yeah, we're doing okay. I'm waiting until
it just feels like we're doing all right. We haven't taken inventory of this,
I know.
But
I'm like dreading doing it.
like,
I know I'm going to add it up. It's going to look ugly.
No, I feel like we're winning.
We're 2-2 last week.
Feels like it.
Yeah, it's we nailed the Alicia Silverstone bungee jump story, which was in fact the piercing.
Did you know that there's and I alerted you to the fact that there's an internet theory that Benicio del Toro is Brad Pitt. Did you know the Chateau Marmont story between Benicio del Toro and Scarlett Johansson?
No, what's going on?
There was I read a book on the Chateau, and one of the legends was that they had sex, Benicio del Toro and Scarlett Johansson, in one of the elevators.
That's a legend.
It's a legend. Yeah, it was after
like
a recent. No, it was like after an Oscar party, and she just like pulled them in there. But like, if you've gotten down to it, Chateau Marmont's not a very tall building. It's like Benicio del Toro's kind of been ass off the record. He's like, I'm not going to come out and deny it because it makes me look like a G. But also at the same time, it's like I had sex going up to the 6th floor. Like, come on.
It's like Rick Pitino.
Yeah, it was a very Rick Pitino type of thing. It's like, if you really break down in logical terms, this doesn't really make sense, but it's good for my overall brand.
It must sound like Pete. What is the Chateau? Is it like a French hotel?
What is this Chateau Marmont? It's right on the in Hollywood on the Sunset Strip. I'd say there. It's a legendary place. Sunset Boulevard was written there. It's a cultural icon, and it's where people go to. It's really cool in that secrecy is a premium. That's where there's been death there. John Belushi overdosed at the Chateau Marmont. Jim Morrison, who I think you'll get to in a little bit, had a crazy episode where he was climbing on balconies and drainage pipes there. Chateau Marmont is a seminal venue in Tinseltown. It is reputed to be like, you can be as bad as you want to be here if you adhere to the general rules and discretion of the place. In fact, I think like the logo of the Chateau is that hedonistic Greek mythological figure with the half man, half goat that plays the flute.
Yeah.
Like Release Your Inhibitions. You probably know.
Is that Dion? Is that, I can't even say it. I'm screwing up. I'm not that good.
But that's like the logo of the Chateau Marmont. It is a wonderful place.
Yeah, Dionysus.
If you step into it, it's like stepping into a time machine. All of it feels kind of old Hollywood. The rooms kind of feel like 1970s apartment, but all that stuff has come back into fashion. Brilliant, great book. It's called The Castle on Sunset. Highly recommend, especially if you love old Hollywood, and you'll get a new appreciation for it. But just a legendary venue that they don't really let you go in it if you're not staying there because of the overall discretion, really tiny. You look around and you're like, what's the appeal here? But when you stay there, you get it.
So it's like the Los Angeles version of like the Jamaica Motel on 8th Street.
just as legendary.
Right by my house, man. Been there plenty of times.
I mean, trust me, in terms of debauchery, Jamaica Motel belongs in that conversation. They're at that cocktail reception next to it's at the next convention hall next to Miami and LSU.
All right, so do you have any football to talk about, Pete?
Well, yeah,
Pete's watching what are you watching? German soccer?
I'm literally.
What's the score? 2-1?
3-1 now.
3-1.
They scored again.
Barca
Rafinha
scored
again.
So who? Rafinha has 2 of them. Who has the other one?
Lewandowski.
Sweet.
Yeah. All right, I wanted to get to one question because he's asking us again before we get to the wrestling topic. And D Breeze, who is a viewer and commenter of this show, says, let me pull up the comment. Says, I'm in Kane's Twitter jail for suggesting JoJo to play corner this year for us. He could be the missing piece to help put us in a position to compete for the championship. He's on the roster and payroll. Too far-fetched. Okay, D Breeze, a couple things here. One, I think it was the manner in which you posted it. First of all, the coaches aren't going to see your post and think very highly of it. Number one, I don't think they're going to be taking not just your suggestions, but any suggestions. Number two, yes, it is too far-fetched. This is a guy who's right up in line, if one of these receivers go down, to be the next receiver in line to play. And yeah, he hasn't played corner at Miami whatsoever. Something he did do at the high school level. I don't know that he is the missing piece at the cornerback to help Miami compete for a championship. So
maybe it's Restrepo.
I think it is I think it is a bit too far fetched, but I'll let you guys chime in on that.
It's funny. I always thought that JoJo would end up being a corner, like when he was like a young player. Just because he has the right size, he has movement skills. It's not totally far-fetched. A lot of people thought JoJo would end up at corner. I think we're a little far along there. I've actually heard, just to get some news into this podcast, that JoJo and Nikar both are pushing for playing time. And I know it's kind of nebulous, but I think you might see those guys earlier than you expect on Saturday.
That's encouraging.
Certainly for the rest of the second half. Look, the top 4 guys, you saw where you had Sam Brown, Restrepo, Horton, and Jacoby George taking the picture with the 4s and the cigars, looking like Arn, Tully,
I wonder how that went over in the locker room.
Ole Anderson, Ric Flair.
How do you think that went over in the locker room?
What, them saying 4?
Yeah.
As opposed, like, if you're the 5th guy.
Yeah. I imagine Nye and
like
JoJo.
Ray Joseph's like the J.J. Dillon of the crew.
Yeah.
But
that would probably be Arroyo.
No, Arroyo's like the Lex Luger, man. He comes in there and he takes it to a whole nother level. When it comes to the physicality of the crew. But a lot of Luger talk, by the way, in the comments.
A lot of people are surprised to find out that Luger was a Miami Hurricane.
Listen, I don't think it's too far-fetched in terms of the fact that he has a skill set to do it, as D was talking about, but you're not going to make that move in the middle of the season when there's someone's mentioning Ryan Mack here. It would be more likely for him to get more playing time at that position than for JoJo Trader to just flip the field and do that.
So Cali Kane, who we love, is a great commentator, says they all scored 4 TD. They all 4 scored TDs versus Louisville. That's why they did the 4. We did not really believe that they were referencing 1980s Southern wrestling superstars, but I appreciate the clarification. We love you, Cali Kane. Throw out the 4s right.
Throw up the 4s the way that Arn did, which it almost looked like curve. It hurt.
Yeah,
it almost like it hurt. Like he had arthritis.
He probably did.
I mean, he was probably 27 when he held up the 4s initially, but he just looked like he was 44. But that's how I always hold up the 4, just like Arn.
There you go. Well, listen, we've been holding up the 4s. The 4 means something, by the way. I'll list a little sidetrack. The 4s, we've been throwing up the 4s for 20 years, and it's meant absolutely nothing. It's just the last 20 years. The 4, totally meaningless. We
everybody does now.
But this team's actually good in the 4th quarter. They've won 3 games in the 4th quarter.
We didn't invent that, did we? We made it cool, like we make everything cool, but we didn't invent that. Right?
Yeah. What do you got in the chat? Pete, did David Davis invent the 4?
No, but if he did, then no one will give him credit for it either.
I get that reference.
Yeah, but
Western Kentucky invented throwing up the 4s. Yeah.
Zombieland.
OJ and Zaquan Patterson getting an increased snap count or what? OJ is already playing a ton. I think Zaquan will get an increased snap count.
Everybody seems to be hinting at that, including the coaches, that he's deserved more playing time. So, yeah. And you've been on it. Anytime that you've said keep an eye out for increased snaps, it's happened. So everybody naturally is seeing what's going on in Columbus with a great deal of envy. they see other impact true freshman wide receivers, and things are going pretty well down here. I think all in all, big win this offseason when it came to talent acquisition. I think it's a tough spot for JoJo and Nye. If the comparison point is going to be Jeremiah Smith, that's unrealistic.
Yeah, but they can still do damage. There's still going to be an opportunity. We talked about the guys holding up the 4. Sam Brown probably gone. Restrepo probably gone. Jacoby George probably
They've had opportunity. JoJo had a big, important target, and he didn't make the most of that one opportunity. So hopefully he uses that as an opportunity to get better.
Teachable moment. I'm excited to see JoJo and Nightcard do their thing.
So let's get to some wrestling talk.
There you go, P. I know you're fired up.
Yeah, look at Pete really wanting us to get to
We
it.
got a second half to get to in Barcelona.
You're trying to just fit us into your schedule.
You can
all
make
right.
point to these places on a map, man.
Then
I was there last summer. I was there last summer. Come on.
I'm going to do my wrestler first real quick because it's not a natural tie into the town. I've been kind of getting away from that. I just wanted to react to the news cycle because I don't think it's a work. It appears that AJ Styles is really hurt after a creative layoff a little bit. This was a guy that was supposed to head into the final phase of an illustrious career. And even though he might be relatively new to some people that just follow the WWE, AJ Styles, take my word for it, has been doing this at a high level for 20 plus years on the indies, really influential in that golden ROH generation that kind of resuscitated the business a little bit and certainly resuscitated independent wrestling. Then doing what he did at TNA, which was the biggest original star that TNA created. He was essentially what Sting was to WCW, AJ Styles was to TNA/Impact Wrestling. Then he goes over to New Japan and just totally resets the industry, makes Bullet Club, I know it was going with Finn Balor beforehand, but makes it a true sensation.
Hot Topic had the shirts.
Putting in 5-star efforts. AJ Styles is essentially Shawn Michaels in the ring, an undersized guy, and that was held against him. It's why WWE passed initially on the opportunity to sign him. And then once Vince and company saw what that guy could do, once he got in his very first moment, Royal Rumble in Orlando, where TNA was headquartered, where at least they filmed most of their stuff, an immense pop. And you have a great face-off moment. And you realize right then and there, WWE really missed it with this guy. He should have been doing this thing in WWE for years. And unfortunately, they got him on the tail end of his career. Still a great run. Great rivalry with Cena. Got the very best out of John Cena. If you have a bad match with AJ Styles, you are a problem. Undertaker's final match of his career. Who do they trust him with? AJ Styles. Because AJ Styles makes everybody look great in that ring. I hope he's not out for as long as they're hinting at. I really do think that when you consider the send-off for John Cena and The Rock coming back to the industry and the Bloodline saga and everything that's going on there in that company, I fear that AJ Styles isn't going to get the send-off that he deserves. It's a damn shame. Honestly, maybe perhaps look at an alternative wrestling company if you want a true send-off, because we can disagree about AEW left and right. One thing that they are elite, no pun intended, at is the send-off. They have nailed the send. What they did for Sting was amazing, and they should do that for AJ Styles if given the opportunity, because I just feel like he's not really a WWE guy, even though he's a multi-time WWE champion, and I don't think his career will get the credit or respect it deserves, because in that ring between those ropes, as good as anyone has ever been at making someone else look good. So I wanted to give my respect to AJ Styles.
No, you mentioned the Boneyard match. The two best things to me to come out of the pandemic, that Boneyard match against Undertaker,
no doubt,
was unreal. Just so unique as a cinematic, kind of like a movie match. Because of the pandemic, they were limited what they could do. And then, of course, D'Eriq King bombing away on Mike Norvell and the Noel sick at home. Those are my two peaks.
Those are the two
of
peak
the pandemic
pegs
for me. So that's a great choice. By the way, look at this. Kane in Idaho says, Pan, the Greek god known for lust and debauchery, is the mascot of the Chateau Marmont. I lived 2 blocks away in the early 90s.
The early 90s, man, that's when the strip was rocking. It steps away from the Viper Room. It steps away from the Rainbow Lounge, where Lemmy would always if Lemmy from Motorhead would just be there at the Whiskey A Go-Go, nearby the Whiskey A Go-Go. You have all these legendary venues that are famous for people dying at, and hair metal. You would love all the history. I always stay at the Sunset Strip, even though it's sad because it's not at all happening, but The Comedy Store, iconic venue. I go to the Comedy Store every time I'm in LA because I feel the history there. And it's just such a special venue. Our guy Brad Williams is often performing there. I love all the history there. And at the very end is the Castle on Sunset, the Chateau Marmont.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with LA. Is this like where like Julia Roberts was being a prostitute?
She might have been doing it on the Sunset Strip, but that movie was mostly based in Beverly Hills.
Right, after they pick her up and get her the makeover.
That general aesthetic, there's that word again, that was very Sunset Strippy. I have to watch Pretty Woman
so
again.
Sunset Strip had prostitutes and the high-end restaurants?
No high-end restaurants.
Sorry, Beverly Hills. So they took it from Sunset Strip to Beverly Hills.
Yeah, no high-end restaurants on the Sunset Strip. It's all gritty dive bars that honestly are struggling to stay open.
Gotcha. All right. Pretty Woman, great, really underrated movie. I'm a huge fan. The guy wrote the movie, never did anything again. It was a one-hit wonder with the Pretty Woman. Apparently it was about the Rust Belt, like having problems. And then all these like young ladies from the Midwest and all these Rust Belt towns moved to LA and just became like, I don't know, high-end prostitutes or low-end prostitutes. And that's what the movie's about. It has like a very deep, apparently it was like super dark when they first wrote it. And then they kind of puffed up the story, made a happy ending. That's
what great chemistry Richard Gere and Julia Roberts had in that movie. Pete, your thoughts?
I don't know.
Let me ask. Let's test Pete's pop culture. Let's test the pop culture relevance of the story. If it reached Pete,
he totally tuned out during.
No,
he totally tuned out.
No,
what were we talking about? This is like when the teachers.
I'm pulling something.
Are the teachers calling you up to read, Peter Ariz?
I'm pulling something up right now that has to do with D Money's
wrestler
of the week. He looks like a Miami staffer to me, and I'm pulling it up. That's what. We'll go ahead and test my knowledge.
Richard Gere gerbil. Does that story mean anything to you?
Isn't a gerbil like a little animal?
Yeah, the animal. Does that doesn't ring any kind of bells to you?
No.
Okay. Well, Google that.
Yeah. So my wrestler of the week. Another
gear is not spelled like a car gear.
Another Southerner. You had AJ Styles from Georgia. I am sticking with the FSU theme this week. I am going with Ron Simmons, the first black champion, heavyweight champion in major wrestling as the NWA champion. It was still NWA, right? It wasn't WCW.
I think it was a WCW.
It was WCW,
champion.
right? All right. Well, he was the champion of that organization, goes to WWF, WWE, and, finds his stride late. But, man, I've gone back and looked at some of those Ron Simmons promos during the Nation Domination era. They hold up awesome. I don't remember being so good on the mic.
Believability.
Totally believable. This is a former defensive tackle for the Florida State Seminoles. I believe he was a Heisman candidate as a D tackle, like maybe finished like 8th or 9th or something like that. He was that dominant. One of the best players in Florida State history. He was not going to Turks and Caicos during the bye week. He was all grit, undersized guy, unbelievable player. Shout out to Ron Simmons, also known as Farouk, but really Ron Simmons. That's where he made his name in WCW.
For younger viewers, he's a guy that occasionally pops up and just says, damn.
Exactly.
Behind folks.
Still living in the meme form. There he is right there. Look at this dude. Look at that headband. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I loved his tag team that he was in, too, when he was a masked wrestler. It was part of Doom.
Oh, yeah, that was kind of a weird gimmick.
It was, but they were like, they got over as a tag team. I think Teddy Long was their manager. Yeah, and you can't overlook. How about this? We said that Ken Dorsey's calling plays for Jameis Winston, Miami FSU tie, leader of the Nation of Domination. Remember how bad it was for one wrestler named Rocky Maivia, couldn't get over at all. He was only once he was paired with Ron Simmons did he get over. That wrestler, Rocky Maivia, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, Miami. So Miami FSU doing work in the WWF at the time.
A lot of ACC defensive tackles, by the way. We talk about Roman Reigns, Georgia Tech. Obviously, these guys didn't play in the ACC, but talk about Dwayne Johnson, Ron Simmons. A lot of defensive tackles for the ACC. Was there anyone on the Canes defensive tackle room that? I mean, Daryl Jackson actually probably be perfect when he doesn't. When he goes undrafted.
I'm not gonna do that.
The guy's 6'7", ripped. I mean,
he was a good player for us. I'm bummed that he's gone. I think he could have helped this year. But I am a little shocked that everyone just decides to run straight at him. That was the tone set in that game in Ireland. Where's Jackson? All right, let's run right at him.
We'll see if we do it on Saturday here. So music wise, I'll just take over here. You got me queued up, Pete.
I have it already. Yep.
So Florida State, I'm staying with.
How's your Richard Gere gerbil Google search going?
I haven't found it yet.
You're in for quite the surprise.
So
you want to talk about saying damn.
So, by the way, that was we talk? We can't talk gerbil, can we? Will that ruin your career?
I've understood that he does not like this. He's threatened litigation.
I gotta say,
but then he has to go to Discovery.
I know.
So it could be a bluff.
I know you always. You're famous.
That doesn't sound good.
You're famous. Oh, you're seeing it now. Look at his eyes.
Says it's false.
He has said it's false, and
well,
you have
not
to
just
say
him,
it.
but there's some sort of
the Google algo.
I don't know if it's the Google one, but this website says claim, says the thingy that we're talking about here, and then it says false.
There you go. So I guess it's false.
I know you guys are big on stunts on the main show.
We've never done that.
If we get sued by Richard Gere on the Canes Inside podcast for gerbil bestiality defamation, that might actually be the high point of this show.
Well, we haven't said it yet, so
I
think we're
haven't said
good.
anything. No,
I think if you say allegedly, you're covered.
I didn't say anything. I don't even know.
Have
what
you ever
you're
seen
talking about.
South Park and Lemmy Winks? That was the Richard Gere thing was part of the story.
It's like when Marilyn Manson took the rib out so he can fillet himself.
Yeah, well, again, legends.
Yeah.
They kind of benefit people to just not actually. Although I don't know how this gerbil one actually helps Richard Gere's brand.
Who's Marilyn Manson?
Here's one, Pete. Do you got Jim Morrison? Is that one that rings a bell?
No.
Not the famed coach of the Miami Hurricanes, right there behind.
I know Adam Morrison.
There's Jim Morris right there, right behind Mike.
He had a son, Jim Morris's son.
Yeah.
Jim Morris' son.
Just Trenton Breeze. What's up, guys? The legendary young lion, Trenton. I don't know if you.
Hope school was good today.
Yeah,
it was looking for you in Louisville.
Getting ready for basketball practice.
There he is. Hope you do your homework before you tune into the Kansas High podcast. Jim Morrison. So keep with the FSU tradition. Ron Simmons, FSU grad. Jim Morrison on FSU. I don't know if he graduated, but he was an FSU student.
And a Miami tie with Jim Morrison.
That's right. That was
because he got arrested in Miami for showing his wiener, allegedly. Although he didn't. He can't sue us.
No, he's dead. He can't do anything.
He can't do anything. He showed his private parts to a bunch of concert goers down here. Was it the Miami Beach Convention Center?
Yeah. Keep that guy away from gerbils. He was a Sunset Strip guy, wasn't he?
He was at the Chateau, no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
So,
couldn't play an instrument.
I believe that.
It's rare. Like a lot of the front people, they find their way through other paths. But musically, no, he just brought vibes.
He was like Anthony Kiedis. Like Anthony Kiedis. He just brought vibes. A lot of people thought he shouldn't have been the singer. The band was above him. I know that Linda Ron said my favorite. She said, I love your band. The singer sucks. But it kind of fit the dynamic. I thought it wouldn't have worked otherwise. It would have been too cheesy with the organ. It's
a kind of a weird movie. Oliver Stone movies are always kind of weird, but Val Kilmer knocks it out the park playing Jim Morrison in the movie The Doors.
Yeah, no, he did a great job. And I like some of their music. I'm not a huge fan, but hands down, my favorite Doors song, 5 to 1. You know this one, Mike?
5 to 1. How does it go? You can sing it, right?
I'll tell you this. It was famously sampled by Kanye West, so Kanye West, man, really was an unbelievable producer.
Peace Frog is my favorite Doors song.
Oh, that's a good one too. That is a good one. But Kanye West, this is how deep Kanye West goes in the crates, or used to go in the crates when he was just starting, man. This guy was not famous at all. Kanye West. He's done some records for Jay-Z. Does a diss song, Jay-Z to Nas and Mobb Deep, Takeover, very famous song, preceded Ether. Kanye West went deep into the crates, found 5 to 1, and the sample is basically just the song. He didn't really change it that much. He just took this Doors song that's not even like a single and made it the beat pretty much unchanged for Jay-Z's diss of Nas and Mobb Deep. And there's one line in that song that in particularly applies to FSU. Jim Morrison probably got arrested at an FSU game for drinking too much. But this line from that song, Takeover, sampling 5 to 1 by The Doors, Jay-Z, applies perfectly to this scenario, addressing Nas. Fell from top 10 to not mentioned at all. Does that sound like someone we know?
You're meta now with your song choices.
Listen, I'm hitting
meta.
Does that sound familiar?
Yeah. What's the score, Pete?
My phone's flipped upside down. I haven't checked, but I can tell you right now.
Yeah. And through your research, what have you deduced? Did Richard Gere allegedly put a gerbil in his butt?
The claims were false from what I saw, but
okay. But you didn't know that. Now, do you know who Richard Gere is?
Now I do, and I will never forget it.
Yeah. He's in a couple good movies. Officer and Gentleman, Pretty Woman, Unfaithful. God, Unfaithful. That movie's a little hot, huh?
Oh yeah, that was
Primal
good.
Fear, Edward Norton, one of the better debuts. I know he technically did stuff before, but Edward Norton just pops off the screen in Primal Fear. Mothman Prophecies. Doing this all from the top of the dome. What's Richard Gere doing lately?
He's, I gotta say,
He's moved on to guinea pigs. My song of the week is a Bob Moses song. I've been watching this show. A lot of people have been watching this show, The Penguin, living in Matt Reeves's DC Batman universe. And I Shazammed one of the songs. I think the music in this show, and it was I wasn't as into it as most people were at the start. And then the flashback episode with one of the main characters was phenomenal. One of the best episodes I've seen of recent television. And they used this Bob Moses track. And I was really surprised because I Shazammed it, hadn't heard it before. And I knew Bob Moses, what Rufus the Soul is doing right now. And you even know Rufus the Soul, do you?
Yeah, I do.
Isn't he playing here?
He has a great song in FIFA.
Well, it's a trio, but it's not one guy.
Are they playing here?
They're playing at Bayfront. They're a huge act. They announced a Rose Bowl show.
Inner Bloom. I know that song.
Yeah. So Bob Moses, it's also not just a guy. It sounds like it's just a guy. It's two guys. Rufus the Soul, 3 guys. Bob Moses, 2 guys. Bob Moses was kind of on that trajectory. Everybody thought like, oh, these guys can do dance music, but with melodic and good songwriting, or at least better songwriting than you're used to hearing in dance music. Then the pandemic hit and we didn't really hear them. They didn't really fulfill their promise. Rufus the Soul basically took that whole piece of the pie away from them. But then I Shazam that song. What is it? Broken Beliefs?
Broken Belief, yep.
Yeah, Broken Belief. I Shazam that song on the Penguin. And I'm like, this song's a bit of a banger. And they play like essentially the entire song during that chunk of the episode. And maybe listen to some of the newer stuff in their catalog. I'm like, hey, I'm not really sure what happened here. Did you guys just go too long in between releases? Did Rufus the Soul? Well, frankly, Rufus the Soul did have bigger tracks. But I feel like there's enough space on this real estate for you guys to both exist and be big. So made me rediscover some of the stuff that I had missed out on Bob Moses. So recency bias, it gave me an opportunity to shout out The Penguin, which I think is a masterful work of Colin Farrell, who, if you say anything about that actor, is that he full commitment. He is like a wrestler that is handed a bad assignment sometimes, and he will make it work. He will get it over. And if something fails, it won't be because of his effort. Really, I love what they've done, from the ambition to the style to the music that they've chosen for this project. And that's just one of the songs that they've used on the show, which is doing a very good job in selecting music. If you have me Shazamming songs, you're doing a good job.
Yeah, I wonder what Dylan Moses is up to these days. Remember him as a recruit?
How about Victor Moses? Now that was a player.
That was
Transformative when Conte decided, you know what? You're a wingback.
Yeah.
By the way, let me tell you, a great show on Netflix, Moses, like the original Moses.
Biblical Moses?
That was a cooler plot than I remember when you really dig into some of the stuff that they were talking about. Check out Moses.
They made a show about Moses
on Netflix. Unbelievable. Moses. I mean, talk about influential. You got Exodus by Bob Marley. How many songs did Moses inspire? Black Moses, Isaac Hayes. Moses was very influential in terms of music, great themes. That was a cool, like, Moses killed a lot of people. Moses had great preaching. Obviously a brave guy.
Did he kill a lot of people?
The Egyptian was beating a slave who was, or beating a Jewish slave. Moses was Jewish, but they didn't know he was Jewish. They thought he was the Pharaoh lineage, or, royal lineage. So he saw that, and he saw the guy beating up the Jew, beat him to death, killed him right there.
Right, but what's his body count? Are you attributing the plagues? Because if he has like, he's got like an unrivaled body count.
Yeah, you gotta count the plagues. Babies,
you're counting the plagues?
You gotta count the plagues.
It's kind of like indirect.
If he's not,
he's just like a vessel of God.
If he's not there, the plagues don't happen.
It's true. All right, we'll give him those
I got one for you. Victor Moses is playing for Luton Town right now, and he's only 33 years old. Seems a lot older than that.
Victor Moses was playing in Russia and somehow got transferred out in the middle of all this stuff. So he found his way to Luton. Good for him. True. Victor Moses, on the international scene, a great Nigerian footballer. Made a lot of money on his individual props over the years, but truly a transformative player, because the style that everybody plays in the Premier League now is borrowed from what Antonio Conte did at Chelsea. And the main guy that made all that work was Victor Moses. It's basically like Scott Hatterberg for baseball. Okay. You know how Moneyball was all
Yeah.
about like Scott Hatterberg and not the fact that they had like 3 of the greatest pitchers of their generation. And they just totally gloss over like Giambi and all that. Like, yeah, Giambi's on the team, but
Mark Boulder,
but it's Scott
Hudson,
Hatterberg.
Zito. Yeah.
So yeah, while you have like Holland and Pep and Klopp and all these people, it's really what changed the game is Victor Moses.
Trenton
Moses.
Breeze right here.
Says the only movies I'm watching this month is them Halloween movies. There you go.
Is that just the Michael Myers Halloween movies or them Halloween movies?
In general, like Hocus Pocus.
just the genre. Yeah, Hocus Pocus. That's a great one of them Halloween movies.
Coach Jinko, what's the drink of the day? D-Money. I'm on Publix unsweet tea today. It's my morning cafecito. That's a great one. I've been sampling the Publix teas. You know, I'm always into that Hi-Yo, non-alcoholic social tonic. Here, look at this. They got 4 craveable flavors: blackberry, lemon, peach, mango, strawberry, guava, watermelon, lime. Crafted with organic adaptogens, natural nootropics, functional botanicals, stress-relieving, mood-boosting lift. We like to call the float.
Not an ad.
Not an ad. I just love it, man. I'm troubled they send me some boxes.
Juan Manuel says Richard Gere is a Buddhist and does humanitarian type things. Yes, he is a Buddhist. BC Boys also became Buddhist.
Look, Trenton just said, I honestly don't think I'm old enough to watch Terrifier at the movies.
I think you're actually right, Trenton.
But you're old enough to produce amazing content for CanesInsight.com. All those stories. Shout out to Trenton Breeze. 7 million posts and counting on the site.
BC Boys got
Sign
a
up
lot
for
less
free.
fun. Oh, there, I said it. It just got a lot less fun.
Oh, when they went to Tibet?
Yeah.
Oh, it ruined them totally.
I read their autobiography. It's just like, okay, like I get it. You're not those
Rafinha
guys
hat trick,
anymore.
Mike.
Really? I would love Lamine Yamal to get one.
Like and subscribe. Go Canes.
Go
Any-
Canes.
In an ad.
Let's please just truly. Can I curse?
Lightly.
I think it does something. I think it does something to monetization. So no, I
It
don't
does?
think so.
lightly. Yeah. Be
Well,
creative.
then I have nothing to say. Just go Canes.
Go Canes.
Okay.
Beat the ever loving